Okay, so let's get started with assignment 6 with the HUCs. And of course, you're going to sign in with your secure authentication. In my case, I've been doing it a few times, so it didn't make me authenticate, thank goodness. You started a new blank map, and you should be working in the new map viewer, not in the classic map viewer. And you save it with a title, and you can put in categories, tags, and summary. It's just good habits to do that, but I don't take off credit if you don't. I'm not that fussy. And one thing you notice, see, I've been working on this a few times, so I probably already have a version of this map out there, so I'm going to add the number 1. If that ever happens to you, it's okay to tag your map with the number 1 or something else that makes it unique. Just make sure that that's the URL that you upload to the homework assignment, so I do get the latest version of your map. You can always go back in and delete the map that's wrong, maybe an older version that hadn't gone well or something. It is a good habit to end up only with the one map in your content area rather than having many, many different versions of the map. And as I said, you can go ahead and put a summary in if you want. Probably a good habit to do that. And next, we're going to start adding our data from the Living Atlas. And we're going to add the watershed boundary data set for HUC 8s. Remember, you can get them for the different HUC levels, but we're going to do 8 in this case, which is the size, for instance, of like Watts bar or something like that. So go ahead and add that one. And just to show you, your little symbols here, it is a subscriber exclusive, so only if you have a org account are you going to be able to see the data. So if you share this data with somebody in the public, they'll be able to see like the state outlines and the live stream gauges because they're public data, but they won't be able to see this watershed boundary data. And you can see how it's not coming in right away, and that's okay. It's just taking a little while. It's a pretty big data set to go out and find it. This can be a function of the USGS website, which is actually out of Esri. In this case, they're hosting it. So don't worry. Eventually, boop, there it goes. Eventually, it pops in. And whenever you add a layer, of course, it automatically shows up to their properties. You can keep that open or close it. It's going to open again every time you add another layer. So you may as well just leave it open until you're done. And now we're looking for the state's boundary. And remember, don't add in the counties. A few of you have done that by mistake before. We're going to add in the states. I don't know why the county shows up as your top choice on that search. It doesn't make sense since you actually type in the word states. Sometimes search doesn't make sense. And then we're going to look for that live stream gauge data, which is hosted by Esri, but it's actually, and you can see is not subscriber only content, as I mentioned, because it is USGS, which would be public data. So now I'm going to go back and just make sure, I've got all my layers there and stop adding layers. We can see we've got them here. Reorder them because I want the watershed boundaries to be on top of the state boundaries. You can't really tell the difference much zoomed out at this extent, but as you zoom in, you'll start to see that that's an advantage. Otherwise, the county would have covered up, or the state would have covered up the watersheds. And now we're going to change the symbology. Right now, those gauges are actually symbolized by amounts that, the actual value. And we're going to make it just more generic just to make it less busy, the map, since we're just using the data for an analysis for those watersheds we're going to find for the Upper Tennessee area. And I said change it to black and make it 4-point. Still looks a little messy because we're zoomed out so far, but as we zoom in, it'll get a little cleaner. And I'm just going to save my map again. And now I am going to search for the state of Tennessee in that state generalized layer. And we can see there's Tennessee highlighted over there. That one was pretty easy, just a straightforward state abbreviation is Tennessee, TN. We zoom to that. We can see the advantages of having the watershed boundaries over the state boundary, so we can see them. And now the secret here, some of you missed this, was you want to starts with. Actually, I think most of you actually did get this. So starts with, and then you want to just give it the first 4 digits of the Upper Tennessee, which is 0601. So then we end up, and it's kind of neat, before you've even finished the window, you can see that it's selected the right ones. So that is helpful. And now we're going to zoom in to that, those watersheds, and we're going to create a bookmark for them. And remember, if that bookmark doesn't show up in your left options, it's probably under the More option. Just depends on your screen resolution. So this, I think I suggested calling it something like Watersheds in Our Study. Yeah, so there's your bookmarks. You can always come back to just this view, which is good. And I told you to please change the symbology of the watershed outline. They're more traditionally outlined in some sort of a blue color. That's why we're going with the blue. So we're doing the outline color, which you can see right now is kind of a grayish. We're changing it to blue. And I said 2 pixels wide. So now you can see the change, and you go ahead and hit done. So now we have our watershed boundaries changed. So now we are going to start our analysis. And this, as I said, has been recently added to Map View and the new version. So I hope they keep on adding them, because right now they don't have all the analyses I hope to use in this class. So I'm hoping they start adding more. The input layer is the one that's going to be summarized. The summarized area is like what you want the areas to be that you come up with a summary for, which is, in our case, these watershed boundaries, but it is smart enough to know that it's just doing the filters. We're going to tell it what field to use, and we're going to use that flow. And then you can see it outlines in blue whichever one you've picked for your statistic. And so you can turn them on and off by just clicking. And so now it's just mean is the only one outlined in blue. And then we have to give it an output name. And once again, if you get some error saying, the names, you can't use it because it's already in use, then just add a number 1 or something to the end of it to make it unique. And I'm just saving mine in the class folder. You probably don't have a specific folder. Right now, we don't have to worry about the environment settings, but you can change things here, like the output coordinate system, which we're not going to worry. You did learn a little bit about coordinate systems. Right now, we're just going to keep on using the same one. So no need to change anything. And this is when we can estimate our credits. And I do have to go in and up all your credits, because you're probably all starting to get close to your 200 credit limit by running a few of these analyses. But UT's got plenty of credits. So you can see it's been submitted, and mine took maybe a minute to run, and then it came up and said it succeeded. And you can see that there it is over there in the left. You can see right now, though, it defaults to just counting the number of points. That is the default. So we have to override that default and change the symbology, the field that we're using to symbolize in our map. And remember, we calculated that mean flow, so that should be a legitimate field we can use. So you can either go to Properties and go to Symbology, or you could have just clicked Styles on the right menu too. Either one would have worked, would have gotten you to the same place. But then when you go to Properties, you do have to hit Edit Layer Style, and this is where you choose your attributes. Now you can either delete the one that's there and then go and pick the right one, or you can just click on it and then from a drop down pick the right one. So, but then it defaulted back to color. So this is where I have to override it and force it back to be size again. Because we do have a couple choices. You can have them symbolized by the size of this circle, which represents each one of those. You can see each one is like over the center of the huck, versus having the actual huck outline colored in by the value, which is what we will do with that copy. So that one we're going to go ahead and make into the color one for sure. So we're going to change that to the color one. So then it's basically the same data. We're just looking at it two different ways. You can actually do color and size, which does both at once, and we'll probably do that a few times too, just because it's another way of symbolizing the data. And I'm going to go ahead and just rename those two layers like I had said in the homework you should do, so we know the difference between the one that's symbolized by size and the one that's symbolized by color. And I'm going to go ahead and copy the beginning part of this rename just so I can use it when I rename the duplicate layer. And then I'm going to go ahead and rename this layer, and that way I can paste in what I had copied, trying to be efficient here, but then replacing the very last part of the layer name with color. So I can see that we've got our two different layers. And that's pretty much the bulk of it here, of what you had to do for this assignment. So everybody did a pretty good job, but this just shows you, how to finish it up, turn on the legend, and then you should have, saved the map at this point.